Perhaps you know this kind of day very well. You wake up already tired, a small tension sits in your chest or in your stomach. The simplest tasks feel strangely heavy. You answer a message too sharply, you forget something important, and then you begin to scold yourself inside. You might think, why am I like this today? I should be stronger. I should be more in control. On such days, our emotions can rise like a quick storm. A remark from a colleague, a child's tantrum, an email from a manager, a headline on the news. And suddenly your heart is racing, your face is hot, your throat feels tight, you want to escape or shout or shut down. This is what I want to speak with you about. Those difficult days when emotions feel larger than your courage, and you wish you had simple, quick habits to calm yourself. Not to become a cold machine that never feels, but to find again a little steadiness, a little warmth, a little connection to others. I would like to explore with you a few very practical habits: breathing, grounding, and reaching out in the spirit of encouragement. Small actions that can restore not only your emotional balance, but also your sense of belonging and social interest. Now, let us consider what usually happens when we do not have such habits. Imagine a person at work. They have slept poorly. On the way to the office, the train is delayed, and they arrive late to an important meeting. Their manager is irritated and makes a short, sharp comment in front of others. The person's heart jumps, their face burns, a thought appears, I am incompetent. Everyone sees it. In that moment, they do not breathe deeply. They do not feel the chair under them. They do not look around to notice the kind faces that might also be in the room. Instead, they tighten, they withdraw. After the meeting, they avoid eye contact, rush back to their desk, and later at home, they replay the comment again and again. Perhaps they numb themselves with their phone or with food. They feel small and alone. From an Adlerian perspective, we can say this person is discouraged. Their feelings of inferiority, this sense of I am not enough, have been awakened. The emotion, the thoughts, and the actions all move in the same direction, away from other people, away from contribution, away from courage. On difficult days, this happens to many of us. We are not defective. We are discouraged. The question for us is not, how do I get rid of all uncomfortable emotions? That would be impossible, and in truth not desirable, because emotions are messengers. A better guiding question might be, what would help me feel a little more grounded and a little more connected, just for this next small moment? I invite us to keep returning to this question as we speak. Not how do I fix my entire life today, but what small step helps me feel more grounded and more connected right now? Let us begin with something very simple: the breath. You may have heard many things about breathing. Sometimes it is presented as a technique to perform perfectly, with many complicated rules. But I would like to treat it as an act of quiet encouragement toward yourself. When strong emotion rises, your body prepares either to fight, to flee, or to freeze. The breath becomes shallow, fast, or stuck. You do not do this on purpose. It is an old pattern of protection. If in that moment you gently lengthen your exhale, you send a small signal back to your body. The danger is not as absolute as it feels. You are allowed to come down from the alarm. You might try something like this. You feel the surge of frustration or fear inside. You say, as calmly as you can, let us take one slow breath. You inhale through the nose lightly to the count of 3. You exhale through the mouth softly. To the count of 4 or 5, once is already good. Twice is better. 3 times is often enough to change the direction of the moment. This is not magic. It does not erase the problem at work, or the crying child, or the conflict with your partner, but it restores a little space between stimulus and response. It gives you back a small piece of freedom. Here our guiding question appears again, in a new form. Can I give myself just 3 calmer breaths, so I can choose the next step a little more wisely? If you like, you might experiment in the coming days with this tiny habit. Each time you notice your shoulders rising and your thoughts racing, pause for 3 breaths with a longer exhale, not to be perfect, only to be a bit more present. Now, let us turn to grounding. On difficult days, we often leave the present moment and live entirely in our head. We imagine future disasters. We replay past conversations. We compare ourselves with others. The body is here, but the mind is somewhere else, usually in a discouraging story. Grounding means returning gently to reality, to the direct contact with the world around you, the chair under your body, the floor beneath your feet, the sound of a distant car, the texture of your clothing. Imagine a parent at home at the end of an exhausting day. The children are loud. One is crying, another is shouting from another room. The parent feels a wave of helplessness and anger. I cannot stand this anymore. I am a terrible parent. In such a moment, they might usually shout, or slam a door, or withdraw to the phone and scroll, half present, half absent. Now picture the same moment but with a soul grounding habit. The parent notices that their hands are shaking a little. This time, instead of acting immediately, they place one hand on the table and feel its solidity. They press their feet into the floor and notice the contact. They take in one detail in the room, the color of a toy, the pattern of light on the wall. Perhaps they say quietly to themselves, I am here. This is my home. These are my children. This storm will pass. The situation has not changed. The children are still noisy, but the parents' inner position has shifted a little. They are again in the room, not trapped entirely in the story of being a failure. This is grounding. It is very simple, almost too simple for our ambitious mind, which prefers complicated solutions. Yet such humble steps often change the direction of the day. Again, our guiding question helps us. What small thing in this room can I feel or see right now that helps me be a little more grounded and present? You might try, when emotions are high, to name softly to yourself 3 things you can feel, 3 things you can see, and 1 sound you can hear. You are not doing science. You are simply returning from the inner storm to the shared world. Now we come to a habit that is deeply Adlerian, reaching out. Discouragement likes isolation. When we are ashamed, anxious, or overwhelmed, we often wish to hide from others. We tell ourselves that we do not want to burden anyone, or that nobody would understand. Underneath, there is often a belief of inferiority. Others are managing. I alone am failing. From the perspective of individual psychology, mental health is closely connected with social interest, with the feeling of belonging and of contributing to others. So, a powerful emotional regulation habit is the decision to interrupt isolation and to reach out even in a small way. Imagine someone sitting alone late at night. The day has gone badly. They feel heavy, restless, unable to sleep. They open their phone, not to connect, but to distract themselves with endless scrolling. With each minute, they feel more disconnected and more inferior. Now imagine that in that same moment, they remember a different possibility. They open a message not to consume, but to write. They send a simple note to a trusted friend. Today was hard for me. I do not need a solution. but I wanted to share it with someone who cares. Perhaps they add one small question. Do you also have days like this? We could call this a reaching out micro step. It is small, but it moves in the opposite direction of discouragement. The friend may answer quickly or later, or not at all. But the very act of sending the message is already a movement toward community. It is a statement. I am not an isolated object. I am part of a network of human beings. My experience matters, and I am willing to be seen. Sometimes, reaching out can also mean offering something to another, even when we feel low. A sincere compliment, a short message of appreciation, a question like, how are you holding up these days? Curiously, when we turn our attention to the needs of others, not to lose ourselves, but to reconnect, our own emotional storm often softens. We remember that we are not alone in our struggle to be human. So again, our guiding question may help. Who could I reach out to right now? In a small and honest way, so that I feel a little more connected and a little less alone, breathing, grounding, reaching out. These are not techniques to become perfect. They are habits of encouragement. Each of them says, in its own language, you are allowed to be human. You are allowed to have difficult days. And you are also capable of choosing a small, courageous step. I would like to speak also to the voice inside you that says, I should not need this. Others do not struggle so much. I am weak. This voice expresses a feeling of inferiority that many people carry. They imagine that others are calm and strong all the time and that they alone are fragile. From there, they demand perfection of themselves. When they cannot meet this demand, they judge themselves harshly. In Adlerian terms, we might say this is the lack of courage to be imperfect. To regulate emotions in a humane way, we must allow ourselves to be learners, not finished products. A difficult day is not proof of failure. It is a lesson. An invitation to adjust our style of life. Now, let us bring in another idea, separation of tasks. When emotions are high, we often mix everything together. Another's opinion of us, the past, the future, our value as a human being, all becomes one heavy mass. We feel responsible for things that are not our task. And we neglect what we actually can influence. On a difficult day, it may help to ask quietly, what is truly my task in this moment? And what belongs to others or to life itself? Your task may be to breathe 3 calmer breaths before answering the email. Your task may be to ground yourself before you enter the room where your children are waiting. Your task may be to send a message to someone you trust instead of disappearing into isolation. It is not your task to guarantee that everyone likes you, or that your manager is always fair, or that your child is never upset. Those belong partly to others, and partly to the unpredictable currents of life. This clarification can itself be regulating. The load becomes lighter when we carry only what is ours to carry. So the guiding question returns once more, with a slight shift. What small step is truly my task right now that helps me feel more grounded and more connected? If you like, you might choose 1 or 2 experiments for the coming days. Perhaps you decide that each morning before you look at your phone, you will take 3 slow breaths with a longer exhale. Perhaps you decide that once a day, when you notice tension rising, you will pause and name 3 things you can feel and 3 things you can see. Perhaps you decide that once this week, you will send a simple, honest message to someone you trust, sharing not only your successes, but also one difficulty. You do not need to succeed every time. You are learning a new style of responding to difficult days. Each attempt even if clumsy, deserves encouragement. From an Adlerian view, the goal is not just self-calming, it is to restore your capacity for participation in life. When you are a little more regulated, you can listen more deeply to others. You can contribute your abilities. You can show up with more courage for your work, your family, your community. You are not doing breathing and grounding and reaching out for yourself alone. You are doing it so that you can remain in movement toward contribution. Even when the road is steep, as we come toward a close, I wish to say this clearly. There is nothing shameful about needing quick emotional habits. On the contrary, to recognize your limits and to seek better ways of responding is a sign of maturity. You are not a broken machine that must be repaired. You are a human being learning how to live with more courage and more connection. So when the next difficult day arrives, and it will, because such days are part of life, perhaps you will remember even one small piece of our conversation. Maybe you will remember to ask yourself, what would help me feel a little more grounded and a little more connected just for this next small moment? And perhaps you will give yourself 3 calmer breaths, or you will let your feet feel the floor, or you will write a simple, honest message to someone who cares. These are small things, yet a life is built from such small things repeated with intention. I hope you may feel, as you experiment with these habits, that you are not alone. There are many others, in many places, also learning to breathe, to ground, and to reach out. In this quiet, shared effort, our social interest grows. We move step by imperfect step from isolation toward community, from fear toward courage, from discouragement toward a life that feels more meaningful and more connected. Thank you for taking this time to reflect with me. If something in these thoughts has been helpful or encouraging, you might choose to stay connected here, perhaps by subscribing or by leaving a small sign of appreciation for this conversation. You may also wish to pass it on to someone who could use a gentle word today. In this way, we continue to grow together in courage, in belonging, and in quiet mutual encouragement.